let us now proceed with the main presentation. Our resource person this afternoon is Miss Veronica Fileo. She is the Business Development Manager of Rakuten Viber. So let us welcome Miss Veronica. Hi, Veronica. Thank you so much for joining us and partnering with Surge.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for taking time. I understand in this day and age, screen fatigue is very real. So I appreciate that you decided to spend your next hour with us. Ms. Ding, shall I proceed with the presentation?
Yes, go ahead. We are also excited to hear it.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so once again, good afternoon. My name is Veronica Fileo. I handle business development for Rakuten Viber. Business development meaning anything and everything strategic and co-marketing partnerships that is handled by me. Today, I'm going to be talking about one of our fastest growing features, which is Viber communities, and basically how you can leverage on it to build your business. Okay, before I get into further detail about communities, I want to take a step back and look at the year that was. So 2020 was, of course, a very different year for a lot of us. All of a sudden, no, hindi tayo pwedeng lumabas, movement is very limited, and well, to put it lightly, a lot of industries were really affected. A lot of businesses were really affected. I think we at Viber were one of the lucky few who was able to even grow during this time, mainly because our business, of course, it's all about connecting people, so to speak. So what we notice is that ever since going on lockdown, one, we have more users on Viber. So for example, no, over the past year, the number of Viber users or subscribers in the Philippines, that one increased by as much as 24%. And not only do we see a lot more people on Viber, syempre they're also doing a lot more activities or interactions within Viber. So for example, yung mga nagsisend ng messages in a one-to-one chat, that one increased by 31%. If we look at calls, the number is even better. So yung mga incoming answered calls, that one increased by as much as 55%. But one thing that we notice is that more than yung mga personal interactions natin, no? So as mentioned earlier by Sir Kaloy, more than kumbaga talking to our batchmates or talking to our friends and family on Viber, we also notice that the Viber users are also trying to connect on a much larger scale. And this is where communities come in. So just to give a preview of the number of communities, or basically gaano siya kalaki during at the height of the pandemic, what we see is that those who would view the communities, it increased by almost 200%. And what's more interesting is that those who would send messages in the community, that one increased by as much as 157%. So a community, it's basically what we call a supergroup. Supergroup dahil yung regular Viber group natin, up to 250 people lang. If it's a community, it's essentially unlimited. You can have as much as 1 billion users. And what we saw is that a lot of brands really tried to create or establish their own community in Viber. So for example, no, I do hope you're part of it. I guess one of our best projects really is with the Department of Health. So ang kagandahan nito, it's a community wherein they would post updates with regard to COVID. Again, very timely and relevant yung information, no? And one other thing I like about this community is that it's actually connected to a chatbot. So for example, if you look at the screenshot at the left-hand side, makikita natin merong small robot icon. Pag pinindot natin yan, pupunta tayo dun sa chatbot. So in the DOH chatbot naman, if the community is more for announcements, latest news, in the chatbot, it's a bit more interactive. Basically, dun ka pwedeng mag-self-check for COVID-19 symptoms. That's one. You can also, get more information with regard to the vaccine and getting vaccinated. We also have branded communities that are, of course, media-centric. So, kumbaga, my example here is the ABS-CBN community. Actually, yung kagandahan with media communities, no, the brands really utilize it on a different level. So for example, si GMA Entertainment, meron siyang community. Ang ginagawa niya once in a while is that nag-i-invite siya ng mga celeb endorsers or yung mga bida sa mga shows nila to actually take over the community and have a chat with regard to, you know, their upcoming show and so on. We also have communities that are treating, we also have brands that are treating their communities pretty much like a digital storefront. So parang online tindahan na nila. So for example, si McDo PH, every time nagpo-post siya ng produkto, parating may link out or may link kung saan pwedeng umorder ng product na yon. One last example when it comes to branded communities is this one, no, the SM Store. What I like about this is, yes, they would post like yung mga available products and so on. Pero once in a while, nagbe-message siya ng mahabang message. Tapos, ang sinasabi niya is, basically, the other members of the community can message one of the admins so that they can facilitate or help process an order. So if you notice, all the communities in this particular slide, no, wala tayong chat bar. So ito yung tinatawag natin na closed community. Closed meaning the typing or the sending of messages in the community, it's only available for super admins, those who created the community, and the admins, those who are appointed by the super admin to help co-manage the community. So me, for example, as a regular member of the DOH Philippines community, I have no option to type, since typing is only limited to their super admins and admins. More than the branded communities, I guess mas gusto ko rin pag-usapan yung tinatawag naman nating user-generated communities. So ito yung mga communities natin na hindi affiliated with any brand. Basically, ito yung mga communities na ginawa rin ng ibang Viber users in order to connect to others on a much larger scale. So, ang kagandahan dun sa mga user-generated communities na to is that a lot of them have something to do with buy and sell. And essentially, no, it's also an opportunity for us, kumbaga, to be able to sell our products. So with the user-generated communities, it can be as broad or as targeted as it can be. So for example, no, meron tayong buyer's depot. So anything and everything that you can sell, food or non-food, it can be posted here. Meron din naman tayong communities na medyo mas specific. So for example, we have the likes of Cakes and Bread Marketplace. What I like about this community is that other than, syempre may mga nagtitinda ng mga ginagawa nilang cakes and bread, pero minsan may mga nagtatanong din with regard to some baking tips or kumbaga suppliers, potential suppliers for their baking business. And yung kagandahan sa community is may mga sumasagot. So may mga tao na nagbibigay ng tips sa mga first-time bakers, meron din mga nagre-recommend ng suppliers para makatulong dun sa business ng iba. Also, we have marketplace communities that are location specific. So I think this one, especially during the height of the pandemic, no, when movement was very limited, syempre may clear advantage if you're able to get a supplier near your area na. So in this particular example, not only is it a marketplace, but it's a marketplace catering mainly to Pasig City. So if tayo po ay taga Pasig, pwede tayong sumali sa community na to at pwede rin tayong magbenta ng items natin, so to speak. One last sample community na user-generated, actually my personal favorite, itong Japanese food lovers community. So again, no, it's still on buy and sell. It's also linked to food, pero this time, sobrang mas specific na siya. It's mainly Japanese food. Okay, so just to talk a bit more about the different features of the community and basically how you can use them for your own business, or should you want to create your own community. First, it's very easy to engage new members. And we say this because unlike a regular Viber group kung saan nakikita natin yung previous messages, nakikita lang natin yung messages from the point we were added and forward, in a community, we have access to message history. So let's say the community has been there for a month. I joined today. I'm still able to check the previous messages, and it's very easy for me to catch up in terms of what's happening in the community. Second is that we keep members' privacy. So if you notice, no, we at Viber, we're very particular about security. Actually, hindi lahat ng messaging apps ganon. I think we're one of the few, well, for one, we're one of the few messaging apps that's end-to-end encrypted. Meaning, whatever messages you exchange on Viber, hindi namin nababasa yon. All we see is code. So whatever information you exchange there, we don't see any of that. And if you notice, if you're part of a community, for one, your number isn't exposed. So hindi nakita yung number nyo at hindi nyo rin nakikita yung number ng iba. Pero we also encourage safe chats. Meaning, whenever you're part of a community, you have an option whether or not to receive private messages. Two ways on how it can work, no, for let's say a brand. Pwedeng if, for example, merong brand na may celebrity endorser na gusto niyang mag-take over ng community. Confirming that's possible, we actually have brands who would do that. Like for example, si Globe at Home postpaid just last week, nagkaroon siya ng community takeover with Drew Arellano and Slater Young. So we just have to make sure na kung gagawa tayo ng ganon, naka-off yung receive private messages para walang ibang mag-message dun sa celeb or key opinion leader or mga influencers natin na gusto nating i-take over yung community. On the flip side, it can also work na, syempre, kunyari, if we're part of a buy and sell community at may tinitinda tayo, syempre dapat naka-on yung receive private messages para makatanggap tayo ng messages from the other members of the community at makapag-inquire sila with regard to our products. Also, it's very easy to moderate the discussion. And we say this because it only takes 2 clicks to number 1, ban a user, and number 2, delete all the messages from that particular user. So let's say, gumawa tayo ng sariling community natin. Yung community na yon, let's say, ginawa natin siya para makapagbenta within our area. So pwedeng pag nakabukas yung typing sa community, if it's an open community, meaning nandyan yung chat bar, as in the example in the right-hand side of the screen. Pag may nag-message na spammer, usually ang spammers kasi parang 5 to 10 messages at a time, so ganun sila mag-send. Very easy naman to manage that as long as it's in a community because it only takes 1 click to delete all the messages from that user and another click to ban that particular user. One last thing about communities is that it's also very easy to grow your community. And we say this because unlike a regular Viber group where we have to have the other users' numbers in order to be able to add them, in a community, each one comes with a unique link. Yung link na yon, i-post natin siya on our Facebook or i-send sa iba't ibang friends, i-forward nila sa mga networks nila. When a user clicks that link, they'll be taken to your community and will be asked to join it. So just to, I guess, summarize in terms of, communities and how you can leverage on it for your business, I'd like to highlight 3 things. One is that communities are all about ease. I say this because it's very easy to create a community. So from our Viber app, compose new community. From there, pwede na tayo mag-upload ng short description, pwede na rin tayo maglagay ng avatar or profile photo for the community, and pwede na tayo mag-customize ng background. Also, it's all about engagement. So within a community, marami tayong iba't ibang tools na pwede natin gamitin in order to manage and interact with our audience. So for example, let's say naka-close yung community, meaning si super admin and admin lang pwede mag-type. Pwede pa rin tayo maglagay ng polls. So yung polls, pwede tayo magtanong ng question dun sa community. The community members can vote on their answers para alam din natin yung general sentiment nung members natin, so to speak. Earlier, I talked about yung hidden number member-to-member chat. So again, when you're part of a community, you have an option whether or not to receive private messages. Ang kagandahan nun is that despite of it being on, meaning pwede tayong i-message ng iba, pag may nag-message sa inyo, given that they don't have or wala kayong number ng isa't isa to begin with, hindi nyo pa rin makita yung number ng isa't isa kahit makaka-exchange na kayo ng messages. So again, we at Viber, we're very particular about security. So that's one other security layer that you can experience when using Viber and of course Viber communities. One more thing is that meron tayong tinatawag na community alias. So, for example, no, basically, pag super admin or admin ako ng community, pwede ako mag-set ng nickname every time magsisend ako ng message to that community. So, for example, I'm Veronica, but whenever I would message on the Viber PH community, it's actually as Viber PH, not as Veronica, so to speak. One more thing with regard to engagement, meron din tayong tinatawag na community insights. So in the community insights, dito natin makikita ilan ba yung sumasali ng community, ilan yung umaalis, ilan yung nagre-react sa messages, or kung basically ilan yung mga nag-engage dun sa mga message na sinesend natin in the community. So again, this is an important tool para kumbaga pwede nating ma-optimize yung content ng community natin. One last thing about communities is that it's also all about coverage. So if you decide na gusto niyo magkaroon ng sarili niyong community, very easy naman to do. I would suggest na gamitin din natin yung invite link para maparami natin yung members ng community natin. I-promote natin to. Also, in the event no na for example, small business tayo, wala tayong resources para gumawa ng sarili nating community, pwede naman tayong sumali dun sa mga existing na buy and sell communities. Okay, so just to wrap up on communities. Okay, so for one, there's no one formula to build your community. So kumbaga with communities, ang parating tanong sa amin is how many messages ba to be sent in a day? Offhand, wala tayong right or wrong answer. Ultimately, yung community natin, it's something that we have to figure out as we move forward, especially yung best practices. So remember lang na pag yung member, part ng community natin, nandun tayo sa main chat screen ng Viber nila. So para tayong in a one-to-one chat with our customers, so to speak. Second is, of course, be more sensitive about the needs of your user base or audience. So for example, no, if the community is, kunyari, you're gonna create a community for your own small business and magpo-post tayo ng products, I would suggest, kung tayo lang yung nagpo-post doon, i-limit din natin yung posting natin. And let's make sure na relevant pa rin yung mga posts at hindi siya basta-basta paulit-ulit or stuff like that. Second is that, you know, should you not be able to create your own community, marami naman tayong options. So there are many communities available based on interest, location, etc. I would recommend na you find the right community for you. So how you do this, pwede po nating hanapin yung community directory within Viber mismo. Or pwede rin natin tingnan yung explore screen. So yung explore screen, it's the third tab on Viber. What we're doing now is that we're updating it. So we'll be adding and featuring more communities there as well. Also, when we're part of a community, let's say we're part of a user-generated community na buy and sell, syempre, let's be aware of the community rules and adapt accordingly. So usually, no, pag mga buy and sell communities, may mga rules na one post per day lang. So para hindi tayo ma-kick out or ma-ban sa community, I suggest that we familiarize ourselves with the rules and of course, we adjust accordingly. So kumbaga kung marami tayong produkto at pwedeng one post per day lang, pwedeng gumawa tayo ng isang image na nandun lahat ng products natin or pwede namang iba-ibang products yung pinopost natin per day as long as we follow yung rules ni community admin. Okay, so basically, that's it on communities. I guess now I wanted to talk a bit more about this new Viber product, I'd say, that we have. So just to go back to communities a bit, no? So the lockdown started last March 2020. By the time it was September 2020, yung number of communities natin, nag-increase na siya by two times more. And if we look at those communities, at least 70% of them have something to do with buy and sell. So dito na yung mga user-generated communities na parang Pasig City Marketplace, Cakes and Bread Marketplace and stuff like that. Pero pag tinignan natin yon, so 70% of them have something to do with buy and sell. If you look closely, more than 50% have something to do with food. And I guess one concern or one pain point we saw is that, kunyari ako, part ako ng isang food community na nagbebenta ng food around QC. If I check it now, and I find food that I like, let's say may nakita akong pasta na gusto ko, I check again 10 minutes after, baka mahirapan akong hanapin yung same information kasi naka-open yung community, meaning anyone and everyone can type. So we at Viber, we saw an opportunity to actually organize and provide another platform just to, help organize the information available when it comes to food, and ultimately helping our MSMEs or informal food sellers. And that brings me to Food PH. I'll just play this video.
Subscribe to Food PH, only on Viber.
So that's the Food PH bot. Food PH is the official food directory on Viber that directly connects local sellers and buyers. So early on, sasabihin ko na, we're not trying to be a grab food. Hindi tayo yung delivery aggregator, so to speak. I did mention earlier na Viber is in the business of connecting people. And in this way, that's what we're trying to do as well. Okay, and how it works is that from the chatbot, I can actually search either by food type, by location, or by simply typing in the search bar. In terms of how to use Food PH, so for one, kung hindi pa tayo familiar sa Food PH, I invite you guys to scan the QR here in the left-hand side. Basically, that will take you to the Food PH chatbot. Or, if you already have your Viber app, pwede naman natin i-type din yung Food PH at makikita na natin siya under the bot. So we at Viber, we're all about, providing a very smooth user journey, user experience. So basically, gusto namin gawing madali yung sign up, and gusto namin maging madali yung paggamit ng app, and of course, paggamit din ng Food PH para sa mga buyers and sellers alike natin. So as a seller, do note that you only need to register once. So for one, punta tayo dun sa chatbot. Pagkatapos natin mag-enter ng bot, we identify ourselves as a seller. Then we press register. After that, we're taken to a microsite still within the chatbot. Just to note lang here, since the chatbot is linked to your Viber account, so it's only one Viber number, one registration as a seller, so to speak. After natin i-submit yung details natin, we click submit, and then this time, we upload naman yung products list natin. So currently, ang pwede lang i-upload ay one photo. Later on, makikita nyo kung bakit. Pero essentially, we would suggest na mag-upload tayo ng photo that best represents the business. So yung iba, usually ang ina-upload nila yung best-selling product nila, or meron din namang iba na nag-upload na ng menu para kompleto na yung info, so to speak. After you upload your product list, that's it. You're now searchable to Food PH subscribers. And basically this Food PH bot, no, it's something that we're continually trying to grow. So right now, I think we're close to almost 90,000 subscribers. So pag naka-sign up tayo doon, searchable tayo to those 90,000 subscribers who are also talking to the bot, so to speak. Okay, so as a buyer, syempre mas simple yung user journey natin. So again, papasok tayo dun sa bot. This time, we identify ourselves as a buyer. We can search either by food type, by location, or again, by simply typing in the search bar. After we search, if you notice, no, makakakita na tayo ng options dyan. So ito na yung one photo na sinasabi ko. So it should be the best photo that represents your business. And of course, syempre, since it's food, dapat sobrang mas enticing para mas willing si buyer na i-message kayo at mag-inquire regarding dun sa produkto nyo. So after being shown the options, I will press on one. If I press order now, I'm taken to the one-to-one chat. This time directly with the seller. So again, no, we're not competing with GrabFood or Foodpanda. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is to connect the buyers directly with the local sellers in their area. Okay, so what's next for Food PH? So we've since expanded. So before, the Food PH was just in a chatbot. Pero ngayon, meron na rin tayong Food PH community. So if in the chatbot, of course, it's automatic, it's one-to-one. In the community, it's one-to-many. And yung kagandahan dun sa community natin is pwede tayong mas mag-interact with the members of the Food PH community. So in this particular community, we have more content. So meron tayong food trivia, seller tips, and this is also where we feature some of the sellers that you can find on the Food PH bot. Also, this is a place where we try to engage with our audiences more. So, dahil sa chatbot, automated siya, walang kumbaga personal interaction. In a community, mas pwede yun. So, in the Food PH community, we have more engagement activities, like meron tayong quiz Fridays. It's also an area where we gather feedback from the Food PH users, or their feedback essentially from the Food PH chatbot. Next is that we're working on a more seamless experience. So we at Viber, no, I mentioned earlier, we're all about making things easy, and I think eventually, no, we want to offer a more seamless experience to those who buy via Food PH. So we're working with a couple of e-wallet partners. So eventually, pag nag-order ka from Food PH, hindi mo na kailangan lumabas dun sa app. At pwede ka nang mag-send ng payment within your Viber chat. So that one, it's coming soon. And of course, we'll be sharing more info on that as we progress. Second is we're also looking to offer a lot of Food PH exclusive promos, offers. So on our side, no, as I said, we're very much invested in this chatbot, and we want to grow it really. We want to have a very healthy audience base, of course, something that will entice our informal sellers as well to have their product on Food PH and also sell on Food PH. So what we would do, no, minsan meron tayong mga seasonal campaigns with Food PH wherein may hina-highlight tayo na iba-ibang sellers, tapos minsan si seller, minsan mag-offer siya ng discount pag doon ka nag-offer via Food PH bot. Okay. And just to wrap up, I guess I'd like to invite each and every one of you to join the Food PH movement. So kung meron tayong small business natin, kung nagbebenta tayo ng food, meron tayong particular food na specialty, bakit hindi natin i-sign up on Food PH? So pwede tayong mag-sign up as a seller. Note that as a seller, once lang naman natin kailangan mag-register. Tapos pwede naman tayong parating pumunta dun sa bot para to check it out as a buyer. Pwede rin tayo mag-shop via the Food PH bot, of course. Second is I'd like you to invite you to join and of course chat in the community. So I think yung community natin, it will be a good resource tool. It's a place where you can learn tips and maybe possibly find information for your next food venture. Actually, that's it. Thank you so much.